welcome everyone. My name is Mike Grover. I'm founder of Outscal. Been generally in the game industry for a good 10 plus years now. Didn't start in it, accidentally stumbled on it, and so on and so forth. But that's a little bit about me. I'll not bore the audience with more details. But today, I have Vaishvik with me as well. He's also been in the industry for a good while now. Worked with some really popular big names. No spoilers. I'm not giving us the spoilers, right? But he's had a good share of fun in the industry, working with popular titles. This is the first time actually Vaishvik and I are actually chatting on Zoom. We've connected on phone multiple times, on WhatsApp, on LinkedIn, etc., etc. But it's finally fun to host you for a one-on-one conversation, take some fun questions from the audience as well, and get to learn more about your journey and how you're seeing sort of the game industry pan out. So welcome, Vaishvik. Any sort of opening thoughts, words that you want to share with everybody as well?
Hey, thanks for inviting me, Mike. So it's good to hear, definitely. It's something that you've already taken up in terms of the responsibility that I have been wanting to do for a very long time, and something that you already started. So I'm very happy for you, and I'm really glad to be here. Let's
awesome.
jump in.
Awesome. Good. So why don't you just give us a high level introduction about a little bit about your background, the kind of projects that you work with, the teams that you work with, so that the audience gets to know you a little bit. And for everybody else, feel free to jot in any questions that you might have. And again, no question is, a dumb question or stupid question. Just feel free to throw us all the possible questions you have regarding game industry, careers, work profiles, cultures, whatever it might be. And I'll try to curate the questions and throw them at Vaishvik as well and get to pick his brain. And I might add in some questions from my side as well. So Vaishvik, just give us a high level.
Right. Usually the best questions are usually the dumb ones. So definitely.
Yep. Exactly. Yep.
So I'm coming from a very normal background. There is nothing fancy about me. It's just that my love for gaming and being an engineer and trying to be as much passionate as possible for the industry has got me here. That's the only thing. That is like I have almost like 7 years of experience in gaming industry. I'm a software engineer too right now at Electronic Arts, and previously I worked at Ubisoft. So I have a kind of a mixed bag of experience working in both console and mobile industry. So it's like kind of getting the experience from different kind of people with different kind of mindsets and different kinds of experiences that they bring in, and what is the usual focus they have on their games, right? So, but when it comes to like having an experience in terms of as a developer, nothing has changed. I was an engineer back then. I am an engineer right now, and what is like the only thing that is actually enabling me right now is that I get to work with the kind of people that I actually want. That is the main thing that I've drove me till here, and I think it is going to continue being like that for a very long amount of time. I am basically from Gujarat. I have done my BTech from Nirma University in Ahmedabad, and here's the thing. So I got a campus placement, but the companies did not attract me in that way. Like the kind of work that I was expecting was not the same kind of thing that I actually wanted to pursue. So what I did was that I just directly applied at Ubisoft offline and tried to see what they were actually looking for. And I just tried to match my college projects with their expectations. And since, as I said, that I was an engineer first, so the kind of questions that they asked were engineer specific questions, and they did like my project. So actually I got in, and then the journey started like that. And actually I had no idea about the kind of things that they expected from console industry. And then once you are in, you try to understand like, okay, this is the kind of thing that they work on, and then you get to work with them. Eventually you get to understand, okay, exactly, this is the kind of thing that people expect when it comes to different disciplines. And then it went on ahead, and I worked around 2 years there and worked on different projects like Just Dance. So 2 iterations of Just Dance. I worked on Grow Home and Grow Up, where they are like cute open world games which are made by very small teams. So it's like an indie game, but made by industry veterans. So kind of an experience that you get is really good. And the kind of console games that I worked on, that completely changed when I worked at EA. Right now, I'm in mobile industry, and I have worked on Visual Blitz as well as Need for Speed No Limits. So currently, I'm a part of Need for Speed team right now, and the game is already live. You can play it; it's for free.
Perfect. Actually, I didn't know you worked on Grow Home because I actually love that game. I
Oh,
always like those kind of um, off the beaten record kind of games, right?
definitely,
Which
yes.
usually are not very mainstream. Otherwise, you'll see a lot of the big studios heavily investing time and money into
Right,
building the popular franchises, right? Like Call of
right,
Duty and FIFA and Maiden and all the sports game and whatnot, right? But these like gems of games like Grow Home, etc., are always like,
right,
something outrageous, something crazy, something that pushes the boundary of how do you think about game development and game design, right?
right.
And give you a completely different experience, right, as a
I
player.
totally agree. Like Grow Home is the game that I used to stay back in the office just to play that after I worked on some bugs.
True, true. I think there are very few games like this is something I always tell even all the students at Outscale, right? They come in thinking, oh, game development is all about game playing and building together, right? But half of the time when you've seen the screen for 8, 10 hours a day, you don't feel like playing any games anymore, right? Like you just want to sit in front of Netflix and relax because you've been already playing it, fixing bugs and all those issues, right? So, but if you do end up working on a project like you just said, right? Even after working on it for 8 hours, you feel like, oh, I want to play this now, right?
Exactly.
That's a
Yes,
very rare thing to find in the industry
I
because
agree.
people don't realize that you end up spending development time so much that you don't even feel like playing anymore after a while.
Not at all. Like the kind of games that, like the kind of time that you spend like months and years on a single game. After that, you are kind of burnt out from looking at the same kind of screens, same kind of mechanics all the time. So yes, I totally get it. Like I can relate to it 100%.
Yeah, usually there's a saying in Hindi, right? Like the halwai doesn't eat its own mithai, right? So it's similar to that
Totally,
and applies to game development. You don't feel
totally.
like the need to play the games that you have built. You're always
Right.
excited about playing other games. You just don't want to look at that screen again, right?
Yes, yes.
So yeah. Hey guys, hope you're enjoying this episode. My name is Mayank Grover. I'm the founder of Outscale. I wanted to take a minute to tell you about our flagship game development program where we take students all the way from starting to job ready in 6 months. We directly partner with over 100 plus game companies where we help students directly crack into these companies by giving them the right kind of skills, both technical as well as non technical, and getting them in front of these companies for interview processes. If you're interested in becoming a full stack game developer, please check out our website, www.outscale.com, or check the link in the description below. Now back to this episode. Perfect, awesome. So, your background was quite inspirational in the sense like there was no like you didn't have an IIT brand name, etc., and still you managed to set yourself on a career trajectory where
Right.
you're successful, you're working with good projects, good teams, good companies, right? So today's generation, when they think about this, right? How, like, what's your advice thinking that like people when they're thinking about this industry, how should they probably prepare about it?
Right. So I'll tell for Ubisoft and EA both what I would, at least for EA right now, what I would say is that we don't look into the colleges that you are coming from at all. Like I have literally screened a lot of people myself, and I what I can say that we don't look at the colleges and that we look at caliber, we look at your experiences, we look at your projects. That is what we are looking for. From the paper, what we want to find out is that do you have passion for game? Are you showing something on a paper that says that you have a passion for games? Are you actually have you actually tried making some games, right? You don't need to make another Assassin's Creed to actually show it on a paper, right? You can just move one character from 1 meter to another meter. That's it. You can show rotating them. You can show the very basic blocks of understanding games, and that should be enough. And that is what we usually look for. So usually people have this myth that they actually hold of themselves from actually reaching out to other people that, hey, I don't have anything specific. I don't have like 7.5 GP. I don't have like, I'm not a gold medalist. Don't worry about that. Just work on your passion, work on your projects, showcase your projects. If you have links of your projects, that is enough. If you can showcase all of the kind of functionalities that you have implemented, that is enough, because that is what we are looking for. And most of everything, we want your basics to be right. Most of the people that overlook this fundamental thing is that the fundamentals are there because of a reason. Like the first 4 semesters of your college is so important that everybody just go like blaze through it without even worrying about it. And eventually what happens is that every time they go to different interviews, they find out that, okay, they asked me a question about a graph, which I used to study about, but now I don't know because I've never worked on it. Things like that, right? So it's like what happens is that we overlook our fundamentals so fast that we don't focus on the right stuff. And that is all I want to say in the majority is that just focus on the fundamentals and show your passion. If you combine these two, you will definitely get where you want to be, for sure.
Yeah, no, I think that's 100% spot on, right? Because there are two things that we highly emphasize on within Outscale as well is like one, fundamentals, right? And that would include your data structures, your algorithm, your problem solving, the fundamentals of at least one game engine. So you understand what physics is, what game loops are, how the game works, what collisions are, and all that stuff, right? So it doesn't matter which game engine. People sometimes get too hung up on Unity or Unreal and other nonsense. Just pick one and stick with it, right? And then the second philosophy that we internally follow is show, don't tell. And you hit those things, right? Like, show me that you have passion. Don't tell me you have passion. There are 1,000 people that come up to us and say, yeah, I'm very passionate about game development. What should I do? I was like, did you make even a single project? It's like, no. It was like, do you have YouTube? Yes. Do you have some internet geo access? Yes. Why didn't you bloody Google a 2-hour YouTube tutorial on making a simple Unity game project, right? There's tons of crap free content available. At least get started. Show me something that you're passionate about. So this philosophy of show, don't tell. I don't want to hear you did something. I want to see what you did, right? And it is so easy to showcase it on GitHub, right? On other such platforms where you can actually put up a project, show either a video playing it, or if you can show code, that's even better, especially for engineers, right? So I think those two philosophies, if you live by just focusing on the fundamentals, everybody wants to make the next Assassin's Creed as their very first project, right? I mean, I'm sure you also had that stupid vision. I had that stupid vision, I know for sure, right? So, but sometimes it's those stupid visions that continue to push you to continue to do those crazy things, which sometimes can be really motivating if channeled in the right way, right? So
exactly, the channeling part is the most important part. Like the most of the students that come to me, they have the same kind of questions. Like they have all this content about there is Unity, there is like asset store for them, there's Unreal, there is so much documentation. Where should I start? How to approach certain thing, right? The only thing that you need to worry about is just think about a functionality that you want to make, and just look into that part of functionality, how you can make it. That's it. Like you don't need to read everything about rendering before you even draw. Like before we'll just put one cube inside your engine. That's it. Dude, you don't need to worry about getting into too much of specifics, because no one is going to get that much of an expert like when you are actually starting your career. So I can say for myself, I am not a graphics expert, right? And I cannot be an expert at everything, and that applies to everyone. You cannot be an expert of everything. You can pick based on your interest and then learn as you go ahead. And that is that you need to stick to all the time. The other thing that happens is that there is a difference between loving games and loving game dev. Like there is a huge mismatch. Like it's not a crime to love game dev because you love games, because I got into the gaming industry just because of that reason. It's just that you need to realize what you are good at to contribute to the game dev industry, right? A lot of people, lot of students, what happens is that they are good at designing, but they try to be programmers, and the vice versa. They are good at programming, but they want to be designers. But what happens is their project shows what they are good at, but they don't realize it. And that is where the channeling part happens, that I have to tell them that, hey, can you just look into another project and try to make certain functionality in a way that you can understand whether you are good at designing something or programming something. Because developer, like there is a lot of way you can contribute to game dev industry. Like tell me one vertical which is not related to game dev industry, right? You can be a data analyst and you will find a job in gaming industry. You can be an R language expert and you can be in gaming industry, right? You can be a producer and it's a gaming industry, right? Every like loving gaming has nothing to do with being a programmer for game dev. So if you are a better engineer and you have a passion for gaming, you can think about in terms of that. But otherwise, you need to figure out your direction about how you want to contribute towards this industry.
Yeah, no, I think majority of people don't even understand the difference between design and development.
Right.
And I think as an industry, we haven't really done a good job in educating the audience as well that how design and development differs. So that's usually a very common misconception among folks because they think it's one and the same thing, right? There's so many engineers that come to us and say, oh, it's game development. That means you just have to drag and drop things and make it look pretty. It's like, no, there's like this amount of computer science that goes into development, and then vice versa as well, right? Like people think that game design is like game design and development is exactly the same thing, and there is no computer science behind it. So I think we need to do our job in the industry as well to make sure that people understand that broadly, and they're able to sort of pick and choose and say, okay, I'm good at design versus I'm good at development. And you know, one very common misconception, at least I have seen this, maybe just tell me if you think you've seen this as well, is that people coming and saying, oh, I want to become a hardcore computer science person, right? Which means I have to only apply to Amazon and Google and Microsoft. Game industry doesn't need computer science. Like, what the hell are algorithms? Like, are you sorting data inside games? No. Then why are these companies, need computer science guys? They just need designers, right? I don't know. Have you seen that kind of sort of a general assumption?
I would say any kind of technical achievement do you see in the industry, gaming industry would be one of the first ones to actually adopt it, right? Like in terms of performance, how else do you think that we are able to play such open world games like without any lag? Like we talk about 60 FPS. 60 FPS means 16 milliseconds per frame, right? And to achieve such amount of performance in a game, there is a lot of experience that goes into optimizing something. Like order of n is not a joke. Exactly, right. So we talk about like lead coding, then we talk about like competitive programming and stuff that actually happens in gaming all the time, every day for programmers. And we have to make sure that we adhere to certain level of performance requirements to meet the requirements, right? So that is definitely the case, that if you think that a certain kind of engineering only applies to certain companies, that is not true. That is definitely the myth, that if there is a myth, there is definitely it needs to be busted.
Yeah, I think I 100% agree, right? Like, because majority of people, don't realize the amount of sort of how much game industry pushes the technology boundary, right? Like if you think about, right, AR, VR didn't become mainstream, or at least what it is right now, if game industry was not there, right?
Totally.
Pokemon Go completely changed the landscape of AR, right? And now suddenly AR is getting used in location-based apps, in virtualize in your training simulators and shopping experiences, right? Once people have started realizing the scope of possibility, right? So I personally feel that gaming industry is always at the edge of pushing the boundary of what technology can do, right? Like somebody mentioned in the chat, IKEA app, right? So all of these are actually nothing but gaming industry pushing the boundaries, and then rest of the industry is trying to adopt, because gaming is always at the forefront of checking out what's new, checking out what greater experience can we deliver in order to sort of not just solve somebody's problem, but actually give them a really fun experience, something worthwhile remembering and sharing and connecting with other people, right?
Right. Any industry that is related to some kind of simulation or real-time applications, they need to make sure that they are at par with the industry standards for sure, because they need to keep on evolving, because the competitions are evolving as well. Right. And the hardware keeps changing by every day.
Perfect. I think there are a bunch of questions already here in the chat. So let me just curate some for you. And okay, so Vinay is asking, can I apply to EA without a CS degree?
I am not sure about that.
Okay,
Yeah,
but
I'll
would
have
you
to
say
check with my.
generally
Yeah.
across the board,
Generally, we have never hired a person like that I know who don't have a degree. So it have definitely helps. But whether I'm not sure whether it's mandatory or not.
yeah, but I think across the board, I'm also not certain about EA
True.
specifically, but generally across the board, what I've seen is a new pattern of where nobody gives a fuck about your degree, right? Like especially when you talk about these young startups that are raising good amount of resources and funding, they're hungry
Right.
for talent. They need
Right.
really good talent who's, and the first criteria is you need to be passionate about game industry and
Exactly.
games in
Yes.
general, right? And then second is that if you're especially applying for a developer role, you need to be really good computer science person, but that doesn't mean that you need a degree in computer science. You can
Right.
learn those core, like you said, right? Like the first 4 semesters where the fundamentals are taught, that are way more important than anything else as well, right?
Right. By
So,
the way,
so
degree in CS doesn't mean like you can have a degree in mechanical engineering as well. That I have seen people getting in through that. So it's not that you need to be a computer science graduate for sure.
yeah. But like, I don't think whether you know about this or not, there have been people through the Outscal program who had 5, 6 years game industry experience as
Okay.
3D artist, and
Okay.
they were in the industry working with companies. There were people, right now we have 2 or 3 people who are already going through the program who are
Okay.
QA with a bunch of studios in Bangalore and whatnot, like Moonfrog,
Right.
etc. And now
Right.
they're transitioning into developer. They don't even come from any engineering
Oh
background, and
yeah, that
they
happens.
graduated
That
like
happens.
6, 7 years back, right? But they spent time in the industry, they love the industry, they were doing something else, and now they're like, we see that technology is playing a very crucial role and we want to be a part of it. We
Oh
want to
yes.
transition a role into tech. And they're going through the Outscal program, and some have already graduated and now working as developers. Others are going on the same journey as well. So across the board, especially with the plethora of new startups, especially because of COVID, right, coming up. And I'm not sure if you're tracking the startups that are the hot startups in the gaming space, right? At least in
Okay.
India, we get a lot of requests from startups because they want to hire talent.
Right.
So they're like,
That is awesome.
frankly, they're just saying fuck off 2 degrees anymore, right? Like, you give us good talent, we're going to take it, right? Again, going back to that same point, fundamentals and
Right.
showroom
Right.
talent,
Right.
right?
I
You can
have
show
actually
me that you have
seen
good
some
projects.
artists. Sorry, go on. Go on.
No, I was just saying this, just those 2 things, right? What we discussed earlier at length. Make sure that your fundamentals are rock solid when it comes to data structures, algorithms, language fundamentals, OOPS concepts, and
Definitely.
all those bits and pieces. And then you have the right projects to showcase, right? So if it's a company that's making hyper casual games, you have some hyper casual games in your portfolio. If it's a company that's making mid-core or RPGs, you have those kind of experience, or at least
Right.
some
Right.
parts of those projects to showcase, that the companies feel like, oh, this person is really excited about the kind of games that we're making.
Right. Right.
So
Right. Right.
let's have a talk to them, right? Or her,
Right.
whatever that case might be. Sorry, you were
Okay.
adding something?
I was saying that I have seen people actually. I have seen a case where people were artists that turned into tech artists that turned into tools development.
Yeah,
Yeah, that has
absolutely.
happened for sure. Yep.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So can someone, so Ranjit is asking, can someone work for an international studio and work remotely from India based on post-COVID scenarios? What do you think? Are you seeing
Uh,
sort of remote work
this
adoption?
happens for sure. It's a case by case basis, and some studios will definitely do that.
Hmm.
It's not possible for all the companies. It will totally depend on the. There are some legal issues that happens with other companies outside of India. They need to have some kind of subsidiary in India or something like that. So you have to actually check with them whether they can actually provide for it or not. But having said that, it's definitely possible. You
Yeah,
should
no,
keep
I think
looking into LinkedIn or other places
correct,
for sure.
correct. No, I think the only thing I'll add is, of course, like you mentioned, right? It's very company specific, depending on what their policy is, etc.
Yes.
The only sort of added complexity when it comes to games is that games usually are a very IP thing, right? Like if you
Right.
imagine like an Uber or a Flipkart app, you can have one team in India, one team in this. There's no conflict in terms of IP, right? Like it's not like, hey, I launched a new shopping experience or something, right? It's
Right.
a shopping thing. You just shop, right? Sure, there are patents there, etc. But here it's like, oh, there's a new character we are creating, etc. Right? So
Right.
there's a lot of like companies are usually secretive about the IP, and they don't want information to leak out before the game is officially
Right.
announced and things like that. So those are slight bit of extra complications when it comes to remote work especially with the bigger studios, right? But I'm
Right.
seeing across the board, there are startups in US and Europe who are looking to go international because it gives them more advantage when it comes to hiring
Definitely.
talent, right? They don't have to be restricted to the geography, and they can hire across the board and adopt this remote first culture. So I'm definitely seeing a strong macro shift, at
There
least
is
in
a
the
shift,
startup world.
yes.
But I think the bigger companies will take some time to evolve and get to that stage. And it's expected because they're bigger, they have more decisions to make, etc.
So EA is definitely moving towards like we do have options about going remote and all, but that is currently up for the people who are already in, right? For the regular employees. I'm not sure about it. It totally depends on the kind of contract you have with the company. If you are an employee of the EA, you do have these choices for sure. But it will always be based on the game team, as you said, that depending on the IPs and all, what kind of games they are, can you actually work being like can you actually work with such a time zone difference if the teams are very well apart from each other? So there are certain kind of other decisions that needs to be made by the game teams, whether they can afford a remote person or not. So based on that, you can have a discussion. But if you are actually looking for remote work, you should try looking into Europe, right? Something within 3-4 hours of Indian time, right?
Yeah.
And then probably you can find the right team for that.
Yeah. The only other thing I'll add is that there are dedicated now job boards that focus on remote jobs only, right?
Definitely.
So you can obviously Google for those as well and see which ones are specifically focusing on remote jobs, and then sort of try and apply for those. But obviously do your research in terms of what experience they need, what kind of background they need. And if you meet that, just don't spray and play, right? Like just apply. That's the most common thing. It ends up wasting a lot of time, but people don't realize how much time they're wasting, right? So,
yeah, definitely.
Okay, cool. So Rishi has an interesting question. What concepts in maths and science are required to be a competent at game development or as a game developer?
Maths, definitely linear algebra, matrix. Try to like it totally depends on what kind of things you're actually interested in, right? When you say maths can be applied in so many things. You can be a data analyst, you can be a product analyst, you can be a product manager, you can be a AI scientist, right? There are a lot of things you can pick. You need to define like what specific things of maths you are interested in. If you're just looking into being a game developer in terms of gameplay, then definitely linear algebra and trigonometry are the basic things that you need to make sure that you're good at. But other than that, everything is based on what is your experience, what is your interest in terms of the implementation is, right? For science, totally depends. I mean, physics, if in terms of gameplay and engine, you want to work in that way, then definitely try to understand more physics-driven things. But yeah, that is the usual way of looking into it.
Yeah, I think just sometimes you need a lot of like matrix math as
A
well.
lot.
That's the only thing probably I'll add in, but I think yeah, you covered pretty much rest. Himanshu is asking, what is the process of getting into a AAA game company?
There is no process. Just apply if you think that you have good enough passion and you can prove it. That's it.
Yep. The only, so typically what, people sort of think somehow game companies would have a very cryptic or a different process. But when you see the general tech industry, more or less the pattern is the same, right? They want to look at your fundamentals. They want to see your portfolio. They want to see whether you're a good cultural fit for the team that's hiring and so on and so forth, right? So more or less you might find, and this is a very generalized answer. It's not specific to a company, but like you'll definitely get some kind of a coding challenge, whether it's a 2 hour 3 hour hacker rank style coding challenge where you have to solve 2-3 problems, or it might be something like hey, build a small feature in a game on a Unity project and show us the actual project completion or something, right? So different companies will try to evaluate sorry, in sort of different formats, and then after that there will be probably some HR round slash technical rounds where they'll try to dig in onto, if they're using Unity, you'll go into Unity, or if they have a C++ engine, they'll probably focus more on C++ fundamentals as well as like data structures and those pieces, right? So
yep, totally.
Sometimes if you're looking for some company specific information, you can Google and you can find a lot of like blog posts and such as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
and like if it comes to EA, definitely just go to careers.ea.com and just try to find what suits your interest, right? And just apply there. That's the process, I would say.
Yep. And sometimes the process actually changes from within the team to team as well, right?
Definitely.
So there's no magic playbook, right? Like, oh, if
Okay.
it's just exactly the same thing. It might actually change depending on the hiring managers. My background is not computer science. I've made a few games in Unity. I got zero experience and got a lot of gaps since my education. Uh, how good or bad are my chances to get a game developer job?
Well, okay.
It's
How many?
fairly up.
Depends on the number of years of experience you have, right? And whether you want to actually make a switch. A lot of gaps. Right?
Yeah, there's
Right.
some gap in the educational experience.
Depends on what kind of gap you're talking about. Is it in terms of years, or is it in terms of something that you're not like? Have you graduated or not?
My guess is that it's more like I've already done education for a while, like maybe like 7-8 years back or something. I've graduated. I'm not a new joinee or something, but I want to transition. It's kind of similar to the experience that I was telling you guys about regarding, somebody doing as a 3D artist or something in the industry, and now they want to transition into tech and become a gameplay programmer and all. Definitely possible, in my opinion. I'll just jump and take this one. Very much possible, but you need to showcase again the same thing. I think we keep going back to those two things, right?
Yes.
Fundamentals and show don't tell, right?
So one thing I would want to add is that when you're applying as an outsider to the company, then you need to make sure, like you need to understand that you're also competing with the people who are just fresh as well, right? So when you don't have that much of experience, you are actually competing with those people who are just have the same kind of experience as you have. So it totally it kind of works as a yellow flag, but it doesn't mean that it is a red flag, right? If you have made the right kind of games, and if you have the right passion, and if you have previous experience in non-gaming industry is somewhat that we can actually make use of, definitely you will be considered for sure. So don't worry about that. It's just that there is nothing wrong in trying, right? It's like you're just one click away from applying. So why not just apply and let other people decide whether you are fit for the job or not?
Correct. Yep. And I think sometimes it can be even a green flag, right? Like you said, the other side, because I talk to like startup founders literally like 10 times a day, right? The thought process for a lot of the young founders is that if somebody has done, say, somebody was like an account manager in some startup, completely fintech oriented role, or something completely different from game development, right? If you are a fintech person and you are an account manager in some company, right, for 6 years, but then you took the pain to spend the last 1 year learning game development, spending your nights, spending your weekends while you were doing your full-time job, right? And now you have a portfolio to show me and tell me that after 6 years, I'm happy to start as an intern and start because this is what I really, really want to pursue. Nothing screams out more than you have passion for it than taking that kind of risk, right? It is a risk, no doubt. I'm not saying it's 100% free advice, right? It is a risk, but then you're basically showcasing that, hey, if there is a smart, passionate person out there, at best they're going to be like me, they're not going to be better than me, right? That's the kind of strong message that you want to send out to the world. And then like Vaishvik said, like, let the other person decide that, right? So like if you don't just think about one or two companies specifically, but you look at the industry at large, right? There is a lot of different kind of talent that would look at it as a greasy. I know personally I would, right, if I was ever hiring. So that's why my thought process works in that direction, right? I don't care. Like if you can show me and clear my interview process, why do I care whether you came from XYZ degree or whatnot, right? Like people are moving away from the IIT mentality because talent comes from everywhere. Smart people come from everywhere. You just need to give them the right opportunity, right? So I know, Vaishvik, it seems like you and I have a very sort of different thought process, so we're kind of counterbalancing each other here.
No, this is much better. I'm liking it.
So what are the modules that are taught in the Outscal program? I think we'll answer that in the chat. Okay, Rupesh is asking, how did you start your first game project? Can you show us?
Oh, I cannot show for sure because that is like, I don't even have it anymore, I think.
Yeah, same.
So So the first game project was a 2D basketball game which I made in OpenGL. It was a very simple thing. It's like a basketball version of Angry Birds. Like you try to aim it and it will go in a projectile and you score it. That's it. The second thing that I made, so this was in second year of my college. In the third year, I actually did
what year was this?
This was the second year of my college.
No, but like 2012, 13, what?
Well, around
12.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
In 13, what I did was that this is not exactly a gaming project, but it definitely is cool. So what is QR code right now? Back then, there was no such thing. Like it was just starting, right? So we were just making use of QR code. So what we did was that me and my partner, we used a glove on our hand. We attached different clips, basically simpler version of QRs, and then we used that to control driving in NFS Most Wanted. So it's like if you're driving, you can literally do like this, and you basically based on your hand, it will try to turn, and you press your thumbs, and it will brake or accelerate, things like that. It was like a cool thing that happened in our stream that we like showed everywhere in the college back then. But
Nice.
that way we actually got to know about how inputs work in the game without even actually touching game code at all, right? Because NFS Most Wanted, we didn't have the source code for it.
Of course. Yeah. No, yeah, that's awesome. I think for me, the first project was like, I think 2010. It was like the paper toss kind of game.
Oh, nice.
You just like randomly flicking on and tossing shit.
Oh, nice.
It was the first. Like it didn't look like paper toss at all. If anybody knows that game, and it was not even in Unity. It was like I think Java or something. And this was like 2010. I had just gotten hands on to my first Nexus phone, the official Nexus phone that Google had launched as the first official Google phone after acquiring Android and whatnot, right? So 6 months after the launch of the phone, I'd got it from US. Some friend was coming and like, that's when I started getting into the game development. And this is the time when I was actually working with D Shaw full time. So I was doing this in nights and over the weekends and experimenting with what all can be done with, basic Android games and so on and so forth, right? Like this is way before even Unity. I don't know what Unity version was. It's like 1, 2, something like that.
Right.
Don't even remember. It's like 11 years now. So, but yeah, awesome. And definitely we don't have those projects now. I think we have changed multiple laptops and whatnot.
Yeah.
Rishikesh is asking if you had to write game development for dummies, what would be some of the things you would write?
Half of it would definitely be half of our engineering degree. For sure. Data structures, algorithms, OS concepts, that those are the first things that you need to definitely do. And trying to understand computer architectures, how memory works, how CPUs work. Those are the basic things that you need to learn if you want to be a game engineer. Yep,
100%. And I think just pick one game engine and stick with it. That's the first advice I should think.
The best thing, yeah.
There are too many people who like 1 month they spend on Unity and they're like, okay, somebody said, let's do Unreal. Somebody said, let's do Lumberyard. Like, okay, now we're switching to Corpus 2D. And every 2 weeks, people keep hopping. There's so many
Unity and Unreal will
stick with one so that you can learn it enough to showcase your skill set, right?
Agree.
If you're not able to showcase the skill set, like you're kind of serving a buffet that is tasteless, right? I have Unity, I have Unreal. Okay, let's dive into Unreal. And I ask you 2 questions, you're like, nothing, right? It doesn't work. So you need to showcase skill set. So stick with one. Fundamentals are exactly the same in both the engines, but stick with one.
I have worked with around 5 to 6 engine by now, like because different games work on, they have different proprietary engines in these companies, right? So it's not the kind of thing that if you have like Unity experience. So Unity, Unreal, these are just tools, right?
Yep.
And the tools are going to keep evolving and they are going to keep changing. So something that if Unity tomorrow obsoletes that, nothing you can do about it, right? So 15 years, 20 years from now, Unity and Unreal will look completely different. So these tools will differ from time to time, but your fundamentals will not differ, right?
Yeah.
So that is what we need to stick to.
I think we're repeating the same fundamental point like 5 times. So yeah, but I think it's like it's never overrated to repeat it because majority of people always forget it
Yeah.
still, right? So okay, perfect. So can you explain, Mohan is asking, can you explain about extended reality?
There's nothing specific. I mean, the people are
I
just
don't know.
creating words. Like
Yeah, I
it's
MR, XR, AR, VR, VR, CR. I have no idea. It's like they're
yeah.
going to
Once you
use
know, let
all
us
the
know,
words.
please.
Yeah, exactly. Mohan, please explain what extended reality is because I for sure don't know.
Yeah,
But
it's just a version of interacting with machines. That's it. And as again, it always comes to fundamentals. Like once you have that sorted, you can hop onto any kind of realities that you want.
exactly.
You can be in this screen reality, virtual reality,
Zoom reality.
augmented, anything. It's fine.
I'm sure
Even
there's
Zoom
going
is
to
making
be.
its own kind of games, right? Even Google has that jumping game when we are not connected to internet. Everything
Correct.
is possible.
Yeah, exactly. I think majority of it is just like tech jargon that people use to create hype around things. But
Right.
if you peel the layers of majority of the things, again, you get to a core which is exactly the same, right?
Right.
So, like I remember when I was at Tani Medan, so the professor that started my department, he was heading Disney's, so his name is Randy Posh.
Oh, nice.
He was heading Disney's virtual reality division in 90s, right? Like when
Wow.
virtual reality was not a word, right?
Not a-
And in CMU, before Oculus, before all of these, wearable headsets, we had this headset which was made out of rubber bands and bandages and duct tape, and like you had to wear this on your head. It will give you exactly the same Oculus level experience, right?
right.
But it was so fragile with those long wires and whatnot. It was completely made in
Right.
house, and it was similar to the kind of early 90s experience what Disney was pioneering, and he was the guy who was heading their department and whatnot, right?
Right.
Sure, Oculus has gone wireless and it has improved the 720p to 180p or whatever, right? Point is the fundamentals is exactly the same. The head tracking and these
Exactly.
things, those fundamentals will remain the same. The technology will keep improving and the shape of it, the quality of it will keep improving, but then it's
Right.
all the same. Reality is reality, whether it's extended or mixed or virtual or whatever, right? It's like slice and dice it in different ways, but it's going to look exactly the same. At the end of the day, is it providing entertainment value or solving some pain point for
Exactly.
a customer?
Yes.
If it's
I
doing
think
that, it's going to adopt. It's going to get
right.
adopted. Right?
Right. I think this brings one of the points that I actually want to say is that there are the industries moving forward in so many ways is that there is a lot of noise and you don't need to listen to all the noise. You're as we said that the fundamentals are the most important things that you need to stick to. And anyway, you are like if you are just starting your career, you have a lot of time to actually go through these things, right? So don't worry about the new things that keep happening in the industry. You will eventually catch up to it if you haven't already, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just try to make sure that your base is strong and everything you once your base is strong, you can jump on very quickly to other things. That is fine.
Yep. 100%. What would you suggest? Amit is asking for juniors and early in their careers. Is it joining a startup or a well-established company?
This is completely based on your what kind of things you want to do. So there are two kind of people when it comes to gaming industry, especially for engineers. There are people who want to do everything. Like they want to do that, they want to make sure that they get to work on rendering stuff. They want to write shaders, they want to write gameplay, they want to move your protagonist. They want to actually integrate some sounds. They actually want to like make sure that the people are playing in the right way, so they'll track as well. So they'll try to do everything. But when it comes to big companies, you will not get to do everything. So usually big companies and especially big teams, they have specialized people, right? So you will have certain kind of job that you are actually an expert at. So you can be an engine programmer or gameplay programmer or a tools programmer or online programmer, something like that. Doesn't mean that you are only bound to that, but it says that you are supposed to be an expert at that, and that is how you are actually reached in that team. And usually majority of work will cover in that specific area. Whereas in startup, what will happen is that in any startup, as it happens, that you are a jack of all. You do everything. if you want to be that person, don't join big companies for sure.
Yeah, no, I think I 100% agree. I'm running a startup, so I know, trust me. But my point here is that, like, you're spot on there, right? Like, if you like doing multiple things at the same time, you like a lot of exposure, you like a lot of ownership, you want a lot of responsibility, right? Startup is the right bet. But if you think you want to be really good at only one thing and you want to really, really specialize in that one thing alone, then a bigger company is going to be best for you as well, because then you'll get the cushion that
Right.
you'll have time to learn, you'll have time to mature. But where startups is like go 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 go, right? Like it's like you're on the front lines and you have to just run, right?
Right.
It's like it's like sprint, 100 meter sprint, but every second, right? Like you're just sprinting, right? There's nothing else. Some
True,
people
true, true.
really thrive in that environment, and that's the kind of challenge that they need to keep themselves going. And if you're
Right.
that kind of person, definitely jump into a startup, because you're
Right.
going to love it, right? You're going to love every moment of it. So more or
Also, it's
less.
not like that big companies don't have small teams. It's
Hmm,
more dependent on what is the size of the team that you want to join. If you want to join a
yeah,
big team, you will have specialized work. If you join a small team, you will have much more wider work.
true, true. And I think my career trajectory has been where I started with D Shaw, which was
Okay.
3,000 people at the time or something like that. In their
Right.
global audience, the Hyderabad office, which I was part of, had 2,000 people. And every subsequent job slash iteration has come down to like smaller and smaller and smaller team size. Now my team is like 9 people.
Right.
So from 3,000 I went to like 400. From 400
Right.
I went to like 250. From 250 I came down to I think 70. Some 70 I came down to 30, and now 30 I'm down to 9. And again, these are different jobs in different industries, in
Got it.
different companies and different countries. But personally, I've figured it out over the years that I enjoy working in a smaller team where you get to learn a lot of different things at the same time, right? So that's just my
Right.
personal thing, and this is something that you
Yep.
guys will have to try out for yourself as well,
Yep.
and
Exactly.
yeah. Perfect. So Mrinal is asking. Wait, what is it? I scrolled too fast. Where is the question? Do you see?
Yeah. I
Okay.
see.
What was the reason behind the downgrade of Watch Dogs from E3?
I wouldn't know, and if I would, I wouldn't tell.
Yeah, okay, that sums it up exactly. So Shivam is asking what is the scope, and actually I don't know. Just to be clear,
Yeah.
I for sure don't know, because if I knew, then I would probably tell, but I don't know. Shivam is asking what is the scope of game development in India?
A lot,
Yeah,
to
that's
say the
like very
least.
broad question. It's like I'm not sure Shiva, if there is a precise question, but there's huge scope. I don't know if you've seen like recent news or something. Game industry is exploding already.
A lot.
There are way too many gamers and not enough games to satisfy their appetite. So game companies are hiring like crazy all the time. There are new companies that are starting. So
Right.
I think it's simple to say that when every other industry was down, game industry was the one that was spiking up like crazy, especially during COVID,
Right.
right? So yeah, I don't know if you want to add anything else broadly from an
Nothing
industry
specific.
perspective.
It's so big that you don't need to worry about the future of gaming. Like I have seen so since childhood, I have seen a lot of people telling that why are you going into game industry, and
Mm-hmm.
especially my parents. Like gaming, does it have future? And I was like, gaming is the future. What are you saying?
Yep.
And
Yep.
if in past 10 years it has done nothing but prove that.
Correct.
We
Correct.
don't need to add anything other than that.
Yeah, I think one thing I usually say even to the students within Outscale as well, right? Like people always have the social hierarchy. Parents are saying, like you said, right? Like I took a bet in 2010 that I'm going to switch my career to gaming when I was
Right.
already in a company that pays like shit crazy, right?
Right.
Back in the day, like Disha used to pay higher than Google,
Uh-huh.
and like I decided I'm going to switch industries and go into gaming and start as an intern again, right? After
Right.
working in Disha for 3 years and being a senior developer there, right?
Right.
So obviously my parents were like, what the hell, right? So I think majority people forget. At the end of the day, you just want one job, right? Why do you care if there are 5,000 jobs listed on LinkedIn versus 500 jobs, right? Like
Right.
all that nonsense doesn't matter. Do you need 500 jobs at the same time? No, you just need one fucker to say yes to you to get you a job. Just take that job and push yourself to get it, right? Like, why the hell do you care about all this?
Right.
But yeah, industry is growing like shit crazy. So yeah, I don't know why people worry too much about it. There's some legal consequences question. I think it's too boring legal stuff. We'll go into some more fun things.
If you are earning from
What is
that
the
game, they will
average?
definitely take your game down.
Which one are you talking about? The legal consequences of using
Yeah,
these
yeah,
assets and all? Yeah, I
yeah.
think please don't do that, right? Just there are ample free resources. Just make some yourself. See Flappy
Until
Bird, so
Epic has
simple,
made
build it
Paragon
up.
available completely free.
Wait, am I dropping off? Dropping off.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay.
I can. I think my internet was fluctuating a little bit, so but I think I'm back.
Yep.
Okay. What is the average package of a game developer from a tier one student? Shivam is asking.
I am not sure what you mean by tier one. Consider yourself
Let's
tier one, I
consider.
would say.
Yeah, I would say just like what do you
But
think
yeah,
is the best?
on a serious note, if you want to actually, I have no idea how to determine tier one salaries, how to filter them out. I would just say, just look into your seniors and what kind of packages they are getting from your college. And at the same time, just don't even worry about that. Just go to Glassdoor, look at some different companies and see what they're paying. But one thing I would say is that gaming industry will definitely not be at the same level as of what you are hearing from tier one students and tier one companies. It's just that you need to make sure that whether you're joining this industry for your passion or for money, right? So you need to choose that. It won't be too bad, but it's definitely, if money is the only thing that's driving you, then you might be disappointed.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree, right? Like if you really are fascinated about all those news of, Amazon offering 50 lakhs CTC, blah, blah, blah nonsense, right? Then, you should aim for that. Usually game companies will not be able to match that level at all,
Right.
right? At that I can tell you guys very clearly. And that goes for both large companies and startup. And because Outscale works with so many companies on the hiring side, we have a lot of information when it comes to what kind of CTCs that we see across the board, right? So
Right.
that being said, I can very well confidently say that the if you're talking about tier one as like high quality students, right? Not just like IIT ka thappa, brand name, etc. High quality students, even with zero past professional experience, can easily get starting salaries of 10 lakh and above. That I can tell you from an industry standard perspective because we have worked with a lot of game studios, right? Exactly what it will be obviously depends on the company, obviously depends
Yep.
on your interview
Totally depends.
performance and so on, those things. So, nobody can give you a precise number. You'll only get that number once you get a job offer. But
Exactly.
that being said, the number can be definitely above 10 lakhs. It all depends on how you perform, right? If you don't perform, then just obviously you're not going to get even the Amazon 50 lakh shit as well, right? So skills
Right.
before anything else.
Right.
What game development software does EA and Ubisoft use? Anand is asking.
Mm,
Like tools or something.
Plenty. So usually big companies tend to rely upon proprietary softwares. We do have like our own huge tools teams that work on different tools that is completely serving the games that they are working on, right? So it totally depends on the kind of things that they are working on. We do have some games that that are made in Unreal. So if you say Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, that's made in Unreal, right? So it's not the kind of thing that it's not wider. What we have access to, you also have the access for the same thing.
Correct.
It's just that what do we do with it?
Yes.
That's the only thing.
Exactly. I think tools are the same. Hammer is a hammer, right? Like whether a master craftsman is using it or a noob, hammer is still a hammer. It just is like how do you use it? It's all that's
Right.
what makes it breaks it, right? But yeah, I think at the end of the day, since I had the luxury of working with EA as well in US for a little bit, like my team was working on Unity, right? But I used to sit right next to the Sims team and they were using their own proprietary engine within EA, right? So Frostbite. So I think it changes drastically. EA is a very vast organization, not just India, but like when you look at globally, right?
Yep.
It's a very vast organization. There are a lot of different teams. There are a lot of different studios inside EA as well, right? Some use their own tech, some use Unity, etc. So I'll go back to Vaishvik's previous point. These are all just tools. right? At the end of the day, the tools are there to just help you do the job, right? And deliver a kick-ass game. So sometimes teams will decide they want to use a new tool versus old tool, etc. So all those can be different decisions. You don't need to worry about the tools. Pick one, stick with it, make sure the fundamentals are rock solid. Those are the things that will matter. Salil is asking, currently I'm doing an online BCA program. Can I get a job while doing an online BCA?
I am not sure.
Okay, I'll say 100% skills. Yeah.
Okay.
It's like one word answer, skills. Show me the skills. You want game dev jobs? Show me game dev skills. That's all I care about. Nothing else. Yep. Whether you're doing online or physical, it's like all that nonsense. Doesn't matter. Rishi is asking, do consoles and their hardware hold back ambitious games?
Always.
Interesting questions.
I would say always, hardware will always cripple your ambition, because we do have a lot of so the ray tracer algorithm was developed sometimes in 1960s, I guess. We still haven't matched in terms of hardware, right? When you talk about our RTX 3080, 3019, even they are not able to match Cyberpunk's performance till now. So it is always going to be the case that hardware actually limits your vision, but that's how, that is how we actually determine what kind of experience that we want to get while making sure that we are able to match hardware's needs.
Yeah, I think I 100% agree. I think you can always look at it fundamentally, right? Like your theoretical limit of what you want to do is only limited by your imagination.
Right.
And for that, you don't need any hardware, right? So your imagination will always be faster and higher and bigger than what physical things can provide, right? We want to fly, right? Human beings want to fly, right? That's our imagination, right? In real world, but our hardware, our human body is just not equipped for it, right? So hardware will always be the limiting in terms of what you can achieve. And I think probably the only alien on this planet is Elon Musk, who's trying to match those things, right? I don't know whether people get that joke or not, but he's the only crazy guy out there who's trying to bring that as close as possible, humanly possible, right? In terms of making imagination reality. And probably Disney, right? From their creativity and movies and whatnot. But again, that's sorry, off topic. Okay, I think there are way too many questions that what I can screen through now. There's some like 50 more questions. And I think we are only left a couple of minutes. So guys, what we'll do is, I think if you guys are on Discord or something, just hop on to Outscal Discord, and probably in the event section, there's a dedicated channel for events. Just put in your questions there, because just to be respectful of Vaishvik's time as well. And I have also another call to jump into after this at 8 o'clock. So we'll cap off and not stress too much, but I'll try to compile the best questions, send it to Vaishvik, and then get some answers from there as well after the call. But yeah, overall, apologies to everybody whose question I was not able to get to. There are way too many today. But hopefully you guys did get a glimpse into Vaishvik's mind. Thanks again for sharing all the details of the thought process. It was really interesting getting to learn. And I think Abhishek just shared the Discord link. Thanks, Abhishek, as well. So you guys can hop in there and we can jam inside the Discord community as well. Any sort of closing thoughts, suggestions for young programmers?
Be limitless, and if you need help, just reach out to us. That's it.
Perfect, awesome. I think both of us are on LinkedIn. Do a little bit of homework, find us, connect with us. We are always happy to connect. I don't know, Vaishvik, I'm just throwing your name out as well.
No, that's fine. It's just that I might take a little while in replying, because that has happened lately. But yeah, I will try my best to reach out to people.
Perfect, awesome. So thanks, Vaishvik, and for all the members. So we are Vaishvik, we're kickstarting a new clan today. So around 16 people are joining us for clan 16, clan 15 of Outscal. So immediately after this, all the members who are in the audience, if you guys are part of the clan 15 kickoff call, there should be a separate calendar invite. Please join in. So we keep launching new clans and sort of new cohorts as well. So today we are starting with just 16 people, nice small groups.
That's
high
good.
quality,
That's much better.
really good kind of kick-ass work, right? So
Right.
awesome. For folks who joined us for the session, thank you so much. It was really a pleasure hosting your questions. And again, apologies not able to cover off the questions, but thanks again, Vaishvik, for joining in. And
Thanks, man.
it was really great. And I think I'll ping you again in a few months, and we'll ask
Sure,
you to
definitely.
come back again because there were way too many questions this time.
Let's catch up
Awesome.
again.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.